everyone, my name is Gabby and today I'm going to be bringing you my watches and experiences for December 2017 wrap-up video. So if you came from my reading wrap-up for December 2017, you would know that I'm going to be from now on splitting up my reading and like announcements and watches and things into two separate videos, but it's gonna look like one video because I'll be wearing the same outfit and I'll be doing it all in one take. But I'm splitting it up into two videos just so I can spend more time talking about the books that I read and the shows and things that I watch individually instead of making it like one massive long video, because I like to ramble and I love to talk about things in depth, and so in order to be able to do that I think it would just be better to split them into two videos. That's what I did for November and I think that worked out relatively well, so I'm going to keep doing that in that same sort of manner that I did with my November wrap up. So if you'd sort of like to see what I did, I'll leave my November wrap up and watches down below, and this time it's going to be more formally split up. That I literally just took the footage and like cut it right in half because I wasn't originally planning on doing that. From now on I'm going to be making it more formally split up, but I explain all of that more in my reading wrap up, so if you want to go and check that out, it will be linked down below. So I have lots of watches to get into, and I actually already filmed this video once and realized that I forgot a really important watch that I want to discuss. So now I'm refilming it, and this time I'm not going to ramble as much because it was obnoxiously long, as all my videos are, and I'm also going to get into some announcements. It'll be a fun time. We're going to dive right in. So my first watch of the month isn't exactly a watch, but it was something that I still experienced nonetheless and want to talk about, and that is B96 Pepsi Jingle Bash at the Allstate Arena at the beginning of December. I think it was like December 6th or 7th. It was a Thursday, so it was like I think the first Thursday of December. This concert was so much fun. The lineup was Taylor Swift, the Backstreet Boys, Sabrina Carpenter, Fifth Harmony, Khaled, and Logic, and so it was packed with lots of new artists and old artists, and it was great. It was so much fun. I loved getting to see Taylor Swift's side. It was definitely a very good sneak peek for the Reputation era. It was so cool to get to see Taylor Swift in the Reputation era because she was just phenomenal, and I love how she's just taken this brand and all these insults that people have thrown at her and making a name for herself, and I think that her marketing for this album is fantastic because it's drawn so many new people to her music. I've been listening to Reputation. I absolutely love it. Such a good album, one of my favorites of the year, and I was listening to Taylor Swift more as a casual viewer in years past, but now I've listened to this entire album. I've gotten on board with it just because I feel like the marketing for it is so phenomenal. I loved getting to see her. She was great, and I'm kind of sad she performed only 6 songs, but still, it was a really great 6 songs, and for those of you that are seeing her on the Reputation tour, I really hope you guys have an amazing time. I have no idea if I'll be going yet or not. I hope I can, but if not, it's okay because I got to see her at the B96 Pepsi Jingle Bash, and it was just so much fun. The Backstreet Boys were completely and entirely surprising to me. They've been around for 25 years, and they were more popular when I was a little kid, like in the early 2000s, late 90s, so it was a little bit before me, but I knew some of their songs. Favorite thing about them was their choreography. Like, it was so great. They had chairs and canes and backup dancers. There was a lot going on, and I loved like the cheesiness of the boy band choreography because it reminded me of my childhood growing up with boy bands in like 2008, 2009. It was just great, and I had so much fun watching them. Their set was amazing because they had like the longest set out of anyone, and it was so much fun. They were great, and I loved Nick Carter personally because he's the one that I know the best, so I loved getting to see him, and I just had so much fun listening to their set. And it was also really cool because there was like a whole bunch of adults that were there that like grew up with the Backstreet Boys that were coming to the show, so it was interesting to get to see a little bit of a different audience compared to past Jingle Bashes where it's usually teenagers that are with their parents or maybe like on their own. It was cool to get to see a whole bunch of films like getting into the Backstreet Boys. That was a lot of fun, and I got into some of their songs because of course I put together a Spotify playlist with all the artists on there to be able to sort of hype myself up for the concert, so I listened to some of their stuff and it was really good, and there were some of their songs that I already knew, so I liked getting to see them. I also saw Sabrina Carpenter, and I love her. I adore Boy Meets World. It's one of my favorite television shows. I watched Girl Meets World before I did Boy Meets World. I actually got to see a taping of Girl Meets World in June 2015 as an 8th grade graduation present. I went out to California and I got to meet Sabrina Carpenter, and I haven't seen her since then, even though she's been to Chicago maybe like once. I'm so glad I finally got to see her. Her set was wonderful. She's so sweet, and actually that night I tweeted about her set and she followed me on Twitter, so that was really cool. I also got to see Logic and Khaled. They were great. They're most known for their collaboration on the song that is titled after the number for the Suicide Hotline. Logic performed that number and it was great. When Logic came on stage, he just had this amazing stage presence where he was just so much fun to watch. He was interacting with audience. Peace, love, and positivity was like the big mantra that he had us repeat, and learning about his background and where he came from and seeing him rise up and just the inspiration that his songs contain is great. I'm usually not a rap fan, like rap music is not my thing, but it definitely has a genre and it has a market and there's people that are into it. I'm just not one of those people, although I respect the genre and the artists that put the music together because I could never do it, like creating the raps and the cadences and everything. It's very, very hard work. I'm just so happy with how successful he is because I feel like he's different than a lot of other rappers, and the fact that he writes songs that are just genuinely inspirational and uplifting and meant to make you feel something. I love it. And he also speaks a lot about mental illness, like anxiety and things like that, because I think he does himself have anxiety, and hearing like about his background, it was so inspirational. And I love the way that he just entirely moved the audience, and like my respect for him went from like 0 to 100 seeing him on stage, so I loved that. I loved getting to see Khaled because he was an artist that I wasn't really too familiar with. I knew Young, Dumb, and Broke. I knew the Suicide Hotline, which he collaborated with Logic, and they didn't get to perform together, which I was kind of bitter about because B96 Pepsi Jingle Bash always brings artists that have collaborated on songs together to their shows. So like one year they brought Charlie Puth and Meghan Trainor. They could have sang Marvin Gaye, they didn't. They always throw away their shot to do those things, and they threw it away again, and I'm super bitter about it because I would have loved to see them perform together, but I got to see the song performed by Logic, so it was fine. I also got to see Khaled sing Silence with Marshmello, and he actually brought Marshmello out, which was so cool because that's one of my favorite songs. It's just so much fun to listen to, and loved getting to see Khaled because he was just up there on stage on his own, just jamming out and just having so much fun and dancing and like getting into his music, and it was great. And he was the opening act, so it was really cool to get to see him. His music was just really good. He's also 19 years old, which is nuts because he's only 2 years older than I am, and that just feels wrong. He was great. And then the only other act that I saw was Fifth Harmony. They were really fun too, but I've seen them before and I think that they were better in years past personally because they had Camila Cabello, and I know a lot more of their songs like from that era, but like since she's left they released an album and it just really didn't do that well. There's like one song that was being played on the radio, but other than that it was kind of like eh. And so they were singing a lot more of their new stuff, but I really hadn't listened to it because I just not as into them anymore. But I got to see them win past performances and they were really, really good. I'm just not as into them anymore as I was before, and that's particularly because they really just don't have as many hits, because I'm the type of person who like will not listen to one artist entirely. I listen to like bits and pieces of artist music and like the big stuff that's popular on the radio, like the top 40s. So I always enjoy going to these concerts because I get to see the artists perform the songs that I know and love because they only have a limited set. I always like going to these types of shows. I'm really glad that I got to go again. The lineup was really great this year and I just had a lot of fun. It was a great way to start off December. So the next thing that I watched this month was Passengers. So this is a movie with Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt that came out last year around Christmas, I believe, and it follows their two characters who end up waking up on a spaceship that is going towards a new planet, but they wake up 90 years too early. So basically now they're gonna die on the ship and they're never gonna reach this planet, and they're also having to deal with the ship malfunctioning and having to figure out how to save it so that they don't kill all of these passengers because they can't get any connection to Earth. And so it's them sort of figuring out what is going on with the ship, how do we fix it, and how do we handle this situation because we're screwed. We woke up 90 years too early and like what do you do now? So this is a movie that a lot of people hated on and I heard horrible things about when it first came out, and so that kind of discouraged me from seeing it. But I love Jennifer Lawrence and I love Chris Pratt, so I was like really excited about this movie, and then I just got discouraged and never saw it. Then I saw that it was going to be on TV and I DVR'd it and I watched it and I really enjoyed it. Of course, when you're trying to do a Castaway with Tom Hanks type thing where you only have like 2 actors that are in the film and it's a very small cast, it's a difficult thing to attempt because you need a really strong actor to be able to step into those shoes and to be able to really captivate somebody for an entire period of time. And Tom Hanks is one of those actors that's just phenomenal and could very easily do that, which is why Castaway was so successful. And this tried to attempt that, and I think that it sort of failed because you don't have like that strong of actors. They're more current actors and not like long withstanding actors. But I love Chris Pratt and I love Jennifer Lawrence. I loved this film because it was purely fun and entertaining, and I think that as for like graphics and like visually it looked stunning, and the plot itself was like simple to understand and was fun, and I really had no problem with it. Like I understand why it's not like the greatest film out there and it's not like it's some masterpiece, but it was a fun movie and I enjoyed it. And if I can watch a movie and I can enjoy it and I can understand what's going on with the plot and it has a cast cast that I really like and a storyline that I think is interesting, then I have no problems with it. So I thought it was a fun film and I thought it was worth my watch. So the next show that I watched this month is Riverdale. So this show is currently in a hiatus in the midway of the second season. I started watching this show in May. I finished reading Lord of Shadows. I had a few days before I was going to leave for New York, and I wasn't going to start another book because I didn't want to have to bring it with me on the flight, because I had a whole bunch of books that I was bringing with me from home and more books that I knew that I would be bringing back home from New York. So I just figured that it really wouldn't do to have another extra book in my carry-on to read. So I needed something to occupy my time for the few days before I was going to leave for New York. I went to Netflix. I found Riverdale. It was a show that a lot of people were talking about at the time, and I saw that Cole Sprouse was in it. I grew up watching Sweet Life of Zack and Cody / Sweet Life on Deck. So I was like, hell yes. I watched it and like finished it in like a day, and I still had like another day left before I was going to leave for New York, and I was like, well, I didn't expect that to go too quickly. I just fell in love with the show because it was so interesting, and every single episode I was like, I need to know what happens next, because it was such a captivating mystery and just so unique. I definitely think the second season was better than the first. The tensions were raised. There was a lot more going on. Every single time I watched an episode, I was like screaming like I need to know what happens next. As for where we are right now with the mid-season finale, I felt like the reveal was kind of underwhelming, to be honest. You were probably seeing a lot of people comment on this if you watch Riverdale. And personally, I'm thinking we're not done yet. I definitely think that there's more going on and more happening. I'm excited to see what the writers and the creative team have up their sleeves. I definitely don't think it's over yet. Like, there's so much more to this story, and I expect so much more from them because they constantly pull out all the twists and turns, and for them to sort of have a little bit of a low blow is not something that I expect from them. So I'm excited to see them raise the stakes, and I'm hoping that the second half of the second season is even better than the first half, and I'm really pumped to see what they do. A lot of people say this show is cheesy, and I agree. It's not like the best show in the world, but it's fun, and it's just a perfect guilty pleasure for my love of like thrillers and mysteries. So like books like Kara Thomas's and Caleb Rarick's, stories that have this really interesting mystery, things that keep you gasping and keep you guessing, and things that you really get invested into and want to know what happens next. Like those type of mysteries I love and have absolutely been some of my favorite things of 2017. So this show perfectly fulfills that love, and it's just a fun show. The cast is really great. It's really well put together and just super fun to watch. Speaking of Riverdale, there's actually a Riverdale convention that is going to be in Chicago at the end of April in Rosemont, and I'm really excited about it. Some of the cast members are going to be there, and they said that they're going to be announcing more cast members as the event gets closer. If I do end up going, I'll let you guys know, and maybe I'll vlog if you guys want to see it. If you would like to see that, maybe give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, because I would love to vlog. That would be so much fun. So hopefully that gets to happen, because I'd be really excited to get to see some of the cast members and get to meet them, because I love the show and it's become one of my favorites of the year. The next show that I watched this month was the second half of the third season of Fuller House. I really don't have much to add compared to when I talked about watching the first half of season 3 of Fuller House when I watched it whenever. It may have been like sometime during the summer. I really don't remember when the first half of season 3 came out. But the second half, still like same thing. I grew up with Full House. It's a show that's been with me for like my entire childhood. So I love the nostalgia of this show, and I love getting to see like all of the cast members back together and get to see like this new generation of Full House and getting to bring it to the next group of kids, because it's a story that's really close to my heart. It's a really good show and just super fun. I don't think that this could work on regular cable television. It would not get enough views. It would not get enough ratings. On Netflix, it has the perfect cult following of Full House fans who really love this show watching it, so that's one of the reasons why I think it's been so successful. I really hope that it gets a 4th season, because there's definitely a plot line going somewhere, and there's a lot of things going on that I would love to get to see developed. I love seeing all the cast members together. I love seeing them so passionate about this show, and it's just so much fun to get to watch, and I love like all the nostalgia of it, and it's just a really funny and like cheesy cute show. It was the perfect thing to get to watch after final exams, to sort of like wind down and watch a show that I really love and has been really close to my heart, to get to see like all of the new episodes and the new direction they're taking the show in. It was just so much fun, and I couldn't be more happy watching this show. It's just like the perfect thing to satisfy me whenever I may be feeling down, because it reminds me of my childhood and like all the things that I loved about the original Full House. And so finally we get to 2 of my favorite movies of this month that I was so excited about getting to watch. First is The Greatest Showman. So this came out in theaters, I believe the Wednesday before Christmas, and I went and saw it on that Friday before Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I absolutely loved It was so great. It is one of my favorite movie musicals of all time. I'm obsessed. I actually just got back from watching it a second time with my cousin because I had to take her because I was like, you have to see this. It's so good. I loved every single aspect of it. I hope it gets so many Oscars. Michael Gracie, who's the director, did a phenomenal job with the cinematography, like making everything look gorgeous and like staging so many beautiful shots. The choreography is phenomenal, especially with some of like the bigger cast numbers and with Zendaya and her doing all the like trapeze work, like getting that on film was beautiful, and like all the choreography that has to go down there, and Rewrite the Stars, like the choreography for that was like insane. It was so good. And all the cast members, Hugh Jackman, who was like the king of movie musicals. Have you not seen Les Mis? Oh my god. And Keala Settle, who is a powerhouse. I'm so excited to see her thrive in 2018. I think this is definitely going to be her year because The Greatest Showman blew her up, and she's done a lot of work on Broadway that I had absolutely no idea about, but I started looking her up and I'm like, oh, I've heard of these things, and I like had no idea she was involved in them, but like this blew her up completely, and I adore her. I think she's great. She's coming out with an EP at the end of January, so I'm definitely going to listen to it because she's such a powerhouse and so amazing and so inspirational, and I want her to get an Oscar. I want her to at least get nominated. She's just so good. Guys, I love her. She's so damn talented. There's Zendaya doing like the trapeze work and just being a boss. I love her. She's definitely thrived this year. Like 2017 was Zendaya's year with Spider-Man Homecoming, and now this, like, she's making her comeback. I watched her on Shake It Up and like remember her being really, really little and adorable, and now she's grown up into like a woman and she's so badass and I love her. And then Zac Efron. Let us talk about Zac Efron because oh my god. Like, I grew up with High School Musical. That was my like Disney thing. I watched the first movie with my cousin who actually took with me to see The Greatest Showman today. Then I like watched it again and I watched High School Musical 2 and fell in love with that, and then saw High School Musical 3 in theaters. Like, that franchise has been with me for so much of my childhood. I loved it then, I love it now. And Zac Efron, he's Troy. It's Troy Bolton. Like, oh my god, you brought Zac Efron back to movie musicals. Like, yes! That was just the best casting decision ever because it fulfilled all of my childhood dreams. And honestly, like watching Rewrite the Stars for the second time, it felt like Troy and Gabriella. Like, it was just so great because Zendaya and Zac Efron are both like Disney stars, or at least like Disney childhood stars. So like, it felt so High School Musical-esque, and I loved it, and it made me so happy, and the film was just so good. I loved everything about it. It was so great, and I wanted to like get up and dance and get into it and like pound my feet and like stomp my fist listening to the numbers. Pascal and Paul are effing geniuses. Everyone was obsessed with La La Land, and I think that La La Land was great, and I definitely think that the music style is very, very different than Dear Evan Hansen and The Greatest Showman, but I love those two musicals more than I do La La Land. La La Land is really unique and really different. It has like more of a jazz style to it, and Dear Evan Hansen and The Greatest Showman are definitely more pop based. I just love Pascal and Paul and everything they do, and it sort of made me realize like I've grown up with them, and there's so many things that they've wrote for where I like didn't even realize it, and it wasn't until I really read Through the Window last month that I was like, Pascal and Paul wrote for Johnny and the Sprites, was like a Disney show, I think, that I like grew up watching that I had like no idea that they wrote for. They did A Christmas Carol, a musical, which I also had no idea about, and I saw that in 6th grade. So they've like been there with me through like little parts of my childhood, and I just love seeing them now finally be really successful and finally breaking out and people like knowing their names. This film was just so good. 10 times better than La La Land, I think, in terms of music, so I hope that they win an Oscar for This Is Me, because I definitely think that's a song that'll get nominated, or just for like best soundtrack in general. I hope that things go well for them with this movie because they deserve it so much. And Alex Lacamoire also was involved in like orchestrations for The Greatest Showman, which I loved, and everything. Just, I was so obsessed with this movie. It was so damn good. I loved everything about it. It was just, to me, like the perfect thing that I needed this holiday season. It warmed my heart so much. I love the message that it sends. I love all the numbers. I couldn't pick a favorite, honestly, because I love all like the big cast numbers, but I also love Zac Efron and Hugh Jackman's number. I love A Million Dreams. Like, everything is so good, and I love each number for different reasons, and it's just, I couldn't pick a favorite because they're all so good, and I love them all for different reasons, and just, it's phenomenal. If I am going to talk about The Greatest Showman, I do have to talk about some of the flaws that the movie has, or like some of the critiques that other people have had with this film, because people either really, really love this film or they're like, about it. And of course, you know where I stand, obviously, but I do want to sort of talk about some of the criticisms that people have had, just because I feel like it would be unrealistic not to. One of the big criticisms of this film is the way that P.T. Barnum is portrayed in the film. A lot of people comment on the fact that he was like a racist and a animal abuser and like overall a horrible human being, and the movie just sort of like dusts that under the rug. In response to that, I sort of want to talk about the time period in which the movie was taking place. This is like post-Civil War. Abraham Lincoln's been assassinated, and so we have a lot of sectional tensions between North and South and a lot of racial tensions, and you have groups like the KKK and other white supremacist groups that are forming to fight African Americans, and you're seeing that sort of tension in the film a little bit. You can't say that it's not there at all. Considering the time period that it's taking place, P.T. Barnum's character is completely and entirely normal, and if anything, he's a little bit odd because he's taking all of these bands of misfits, people that are odd, and trying to portray them as normal. It's hard to, in that sense, considering the time period that it's taking place in, make him out to be a racist. Like, it just doesn't work because he was one of the more like radical people in doing this compared to a lot of other people who like hated African Americans, and you like see that in the movie a little bit, like some of the opposition that like comes and wants to fight against this because they think that it's weird and they don't like seeing these people that are strange and odd being made equals. And that's sort of like what you see going on with the Civil War, because even though African Americans have been given more rights with like the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, they're still not equal, and a lot of people frown upon them, and even the Northerners like didn't like them being equal, but purely did it just because they knew the African Americans would vote for them or the Republican Party, which was basically all the Northerners. I think that if you look at it in the time period that it was taking place, it definitely changes your perspective a lot, and I feel like that's the big issue, is a lot of people are looking at this film with their 2017 eyes, and they're not looking at it within the time period that's taking place. And being in AP US history, that's definitely something that I've learned, is that when you're learning about history, you have to look at the time period it was taking place, because the way that we look at things now is so different than the way that things were taking place in history, because the 19th century, what was going on then, is completely entirely different in the 21st century in the way that we view things. And that's one of the big reasons why the circus has died, because we accept diversity and accept people's oddities, and we also have such a growth of like technology and medicine that we understand why people are different in terms of like conditions or medical illnesses that they may have that could cause them to look different or be odd in some way, shape, or form. Now that we have that understanding, you don't want to go and like watch people who are weird or different. Like the whole thing just sort of dies because what it was based upon has completely entirely been like decimated in society, because we accept the odd and the different now, and that's something that's really recent, which is why the circus has recently died, because there's no basis for it anymore. So it's interesting to see the story told, considering like what's going on in society now and the way that society views people who are odd compared to like the way they were viewed then. And it's interesting to see that because it's so different now compared to how it was then. So that completely entirely changes your perspective on the film, and I think it's important to acknowledge that. And also the fact that it's a movie and that they're not gonna make their protagonist out to be a villain and put a lot of those aspects in. One, because it wouldn't work, because it's meant to sort of show the magic of the circus, and two, it's just impractical. Like, you want to make your main character flawed, and you do get to see P.T. Barnum's flaws. Like, it's not like he's completely entirely flawless. There's definitely a major character flaw that his character has in this film, and you see that as you go about and you watch the entire story unfold. So it's not like he's not flawed at all, but it just wouldn't work to put a lot of those things in because of the time period it was taking place. It just seems a little extra, although I understand a lot of people's comments and concerns about the way that his storyline was told and some of the inaccuracies with it. I know a lot of people also commented about like P.T. Barnum being a prohibitionist and like not drinking alcohol, but then you have the number with him and Zac Efron and they're basically downing shots, and Barnum's character is drinking alcohol a lot through the show. I just think that that was like purely done for like movie's sake, because let's be real, that number with him and Zac Efron was really freaking cool, and you also see it in From Now On. The Other Side is such a cool number though. I really, really love it, so I would have been a little bit disappointed if they had gotten rid of that just for the sake of being contextual and factual, because I really don't think that's what this movie was about. It was just about showing the magic of the theater and sort of roughly how the whole idea came about in creating a musical and just having a lot of fun with it. So I understand people's criticisms, and I do think that they're valid. I just like to look at it with a little bit of a glass half full perspective and sort of try to be understanding as to why they didn't include certain aspects. Also because I think they just had a lot on their plate and it would be very difficult to include all this historical evidence in where you're also having to tell the story and have all this choreography and lots of like crazy things going on. I think it would just be too much. I understand that the movie isn't perfect, but I really, really enjoyed it and was really happy with what they brought to the film, and it was just a lot of fun. How could I not be happy with it? Finally, to wrap up my watches for December 2017, we have the movie version of Rent, which came out in 2005. So this basically took the Broadway show Rent and adapted it into film form, and a lot of the original Broadway cast actually came back for this film. It stars Rosario Dawson, Taye Diggs, Wilson Jermaine Heredia, which I probably pronounced that wrong, I apologize, Jesse L. Martin, who was like in everything, and I had absolutely no idea, and then I saw him and I was like, oh, he's the guy from Smash, and he's in The Flash, and he's in like a whole bunch of things, and I was like so surprised to see him, and I had no idea that he was in Rent, so like that was really cool. Idina Menzel, Adam Pascal, Anthony Rapp, who was like the Rent king, like everyone knows him for his role as Mark in Rent, and Tracy Toms. I'm so glad I finally got to see this film because Rent is like the pinnacle of modern musical theater, and like if you haven't seen Rent, then you've just sort of been a little bit MIA, and so I needed to at least expose myself to this musical, and this has been on my DVR since like the almost beginning of the year, maybe like May, I have no idea, like it was when I first got on demand, and that was like sometime this year, I have no idea when, but it's been on my DVR for quite a long period of time is the point. I just never watched it, and then it was going to expire on December 31st, and I was like, I only have a few days left to watch this, so I better watch it now, and I did, and it was so great, and I loved it. I loved getting to see the story, I loved the diversity of all the characters, I loved the HIV and AIDS representation. There was just so many things going on, and it was very sexy and very, 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 very fun, and I loved it. I loved the cast. It's just so iconic, and if Rent ever does come back to Broadway, I know it recently did a 20th anniversary tour, and it was in Chicago. I didn't get to see it because it was only there for like a day, so it would kind of probably be hard to get tickets because Rent is like so iconic, but if it ever does come back to Chicago and does like a longer run, I definitely want to go and see it on Broadway because I think it's very different in musical form, but I wanted to be able to get to expose myself to the story and the plotline nonetheless. So favorite songs definitely have to be like Seasons of Love because that song is so iconic, and it was on the radio. It became one of those songs that was like a radio hit, and if you're at a Broadway musical and a song is on the radio, like you know you're doing something right. Seasons of Love, because of course everyone knows like the lyrics to that because it's just such an iconic song. Rent is also another really, really iconic song, and it's such a fun jam, and I love the way that it was filmed, like all the fire of people like averting their eviction notices I thought looked so cool, and like the cinematography for that number was great. Tango Maureen was another really good one that I was surprised by that I really, really liked. And then of course there's La Vie Boheme, which is like an iconic Rent song, and Anthony Rapp's like solo in that is like my favorite part. So I loved that number particularly because that was like the one thing I really knew from Rent from watching Tyler Mount's video with Anthony Rapp, which I'll link down below. You guys should watch it. And then I liked one other number, What You Own, because I remember hearing that song as well. I feel like some of the lyrics for that, like we're living in America at the end of the millennium, like that was the one part that I recognized, and I'm like, this had to have been on the radio as well because I just remember hearing those lyrics, so like I was actually kind of familiar with Rent a little bit, but I was glad to see the plotline. I love seeing Adam Pascal. I know that he did Something Rotten as the Bard, so like it was cool to get to see him in Rent, and Rosario Dawson, I had like no idea that she was in Rent. I sort of feel like I knew that Idina Menzel was in Rent and Tracy Toms was in Rent, but then like I saw them and I was like, whoa! And Jesse L. Martin, like there's so many of these people where I was like, you were in Rent? Because a lot of them were like a part of the OBC, and it like hit me and I was like, where have I been? So it was fun to just get to watch this because I've been needing to watch it forever, and I really, really loved it. I'm gonna start listening to the cast recording a little bit more because they have the original Broadway cast recording and they also have the recording for the movie. I feel like for now I'm probably gonna stick to the movie just because I know the plotline of the movie, so I would probably be better off listening to like the composed version because I know that the Broadway score is a little bit longer and more broken up, so I think it would probably be better to stick to listening to the movie version for now. But definitely if I ever see the Broadway show, I'm gonna want to go and listen to that a little bit more. But I loved getting to watch Rent. It was great, and I'm so glad I finally exposed myself to that very iconic part of current musical theater culture. Okay, quickly going back to The Greatest Showman, because I forgot about this. There are 2 other videos that I'm going to link down below that you really need to watch if you love The Greatest Showman if you haven't watched it. Both of them are from the same time period. It's when the musical was going to be greenlit, and so they were looking to sort of put a workshop together and have some people in the room and sort of show like what they had together and have like the cast members perform. There's one that has Hugh Jackman is like the main star, like you're seeing him perform from now on, which is one of the last numbers of the film. He had gotten a surgery done, and so he wasn't allowed to sing, and so he was just sort of there, and Jeremy Jordan was replacing him. And so Jeremy Jordan starts singing the opening of this number, and then suddenly Hugh Jackman's like, screw this, and starts singing and belting, and like everyone gets into it, and it's super emotional, and it's like the greatest thing. And that's really good. I liked that, and it was like really, really touching, and it hit me like a ton of bricks, but that hurt. What hurt worse was seeing Keala Settle sing This Is Me, because that's a number that's just so powerful, and she pretty much is standing behind the podium. You can tell how afraid she is, and suddenly like she steps away from the podium and starts belting, and everyone gets into it and they're clapping, and you see like Jeremy Jordan, Cynthia Erivo, Andrew Keaton Bulger, like there's all these big Broadway people that are in the room, and they're just like clapping along with her, and the ensemble is getting into it, and it's the most emotional thing ever. But I loved it to pieces. It's the greatest thing. You need to watch it. If you haven't, they will both be linked down below. It will change your life. I love those. And I literally went and watched that, and I was like, I need to watch it again. And then I like watched it again, and I was like, shook it. It was so great. And I watched the Hugh Jackman one before I saw the movie, and then I watched the Keala Settle one after I saw the film, and it just hit me so much more. It was so good. And I had to mention that because like, it's so worth your watch, and you need to watch it. Like, link will be down below. So, some announcements really quickly to wrap up this video, because I know it's getting excruciatingly long because I love to ramble. I did an interview with my friend Emily over at Emily's Books for Stay Bookish magazine, which she writes for, and I was really, really excited that that finally came together. I did it a while ago, and they finally got it put together and put up. So I will leave the link down below where you can go and check that out. Thank you so much, Emily, to interviewing me. I had so much fun answering her questions. They were really, really creative and really inventive, so I was really glad to get to see that come together. It was so much fun. So again, thank you so much to Emily for interviewing me. I will leave her social media down below if you want to go and check her out, and I'll also leave the link down below to Stay Bookish magazine where you can go and check out my interview. So another thing, for any of you that are interested, I was thinking of doing a possible collab to This Is Me from The Greatest Showman, and I had this whole idea for it, and I want to try to get it up around Oscar season. So if any of you guys would be interested in participating, and you don't have to have a booktube channel, if you have like any maybe bookish social media would probably be helpful, so I can leave like your links down below in the description. I figured that'd be something fun to do. I have a whole idea for it, so if you want to find out more, let me know, and maybe I'll create like a DM on Instagram or Twitter or somewhere is best for everyone, and I can talk more about my ideas, because I have something brewing and I would like to get people to participate, but of course it's hard when you're a smaller channel to get like a whole bunch of people together. It would definitely be fun, and I would really love to get to do it if it worked out. If you would like to know my ideas and you maybe like to spread the word, maybe comment down below or direct message me or something, because I have some ideas brewing and I would like to get to do a collab with all of you guys, because I think it would be fun to get to work with other creators, because that's definitely one of my goals for 2018. So I would like to be able to fulfill that by making a collab for The Greatest Showman. So comment down below if you want more details, and I'll DM you and put some people together, create a group chat, and then let you guys know more of my thoughts. Alright, so that I think about wraps everything up for my watches of December 2017 wrap up. I rambled a lot, as per usual. As you can see why I'm splitting these videos into 2 now, because this is probably going to be a half an hour long, because I can't shut up. I love to discuss all my thoughts in depth, so I hope you guys don't mind really, really long videos. Thank you guys so much for watching and sitting through all these videos time and time again. It really means a lot to me as a creator to be able to spill all of my passions out to the world about the things that I really love watching and the books that I really, really love reading. And I'm glad that I'm making this new decision to split it into 2 so I can equally share my love for both. So with that all out of the way, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time with a new video. Goodbye!
Yeah.